I want to start with the note. Not the body, not the apartment, the note. Because whoever killed Carol Bonnet didn't just leave a crime scene. He left a message, written on a newspaper, in blue ink, taunting the police, who hadn't even arrived yet. If this is your first time here, I dig into a new case every week, the ones other channels skip past. Subscribe if you want more of this.
It would take 33 years for anyone to answer that message. And when they finally did, it wasn't a witness or a confession or a lucky break. It was the killer's own signature.
October 19th, 1978, Omaha, Nebraska. Carol Bonnet hasn't shown up for work in 2 days. That's not like him. He's 61 years old, works at Clarkson Hospital, keeps to himself, lives alone in a downtown Omaha apartment. A friend notices the pattern and calls the building manager, asks him to check. The manager knocks. No answer. He goes to the mail slot, the kind you'd find on any apartment door in a building like this in 1978, and looks through. He sees a man lying face down on the floor. The fire department arrives first. They force the door, and what they find inside isn't a medical emergency. Carol Bonnet is dead, naked, face down. A stab wound to his torso. Omaha PD secures the scene. Here's where I need to pause, because the apartment itself tells a story before anyone says a word. This was, by every account, a tidy man's home, and now it's in shambles. Newspapers thrown across the floor and coffee table. 3 towels near the body. The telephone cord cut, not accidentally, deliberately, like someone wanted to make sure Bonnet couldn't call for help or that no one could call in. And then near the body, investigators find it, a note. I am leaving this crime with only one clue. Find it yourself, pig. Die, pig. Helter. I've covered a lot of crime scenes on this channel. I don't think I've seen a killer taunt police in writing quite like this. He's not just confessing to a random act of violence. He's turning it into a game. He's telling detectives directly that the answer is sitting right there in the room with them. They just don't know it yet. They collect everything. The note, the towels, cigarette butts, beer cans, the newspapers. Fingerprints and palm prints lifted from the bathroom door, the medicine cabinet, the coffee table, the phone. And then they find something else missing, Bonnet's car. Before I go further into the investigation, I want to slow down on who this man actually was, because true crime has a habit of turning victims into footnotes in their own murder. Carol Bonnet worked at Clarkson Hospital in Omaha. He was 61. He lived alone. Neighbors and coworkers describe a routine, orderly life. The kind where missing 2 shifts in a row is enough for a friend to worry immediately. There's no sign of forced entry into that apartment. No broken lock, no shattered window, which tells investigators something important right away. Bonnet likely let his killer in himself. That single detail, no forced entry, is going to matter for the next 3 decades. 2 days after the murder is discovered, Bonnet's car turns up. Not in Omaha, in Cicero, Illinois, roughly 500 miles away, sitting abandoned with stolen Illinois license plates on it. Those plates had been reported stolen just 3 days earlier. Illinois police process the car. Inside, they find cigarette butts and 2 identifiable fingerprints. One belongs to Bonnet, the other doesn't match anyone.
Back in Omaha, detectives run their own leads. They interview people, chase down a suspect, but 1978 is a different world for forensics. No searchable fingerprint databases. No DNA testing as we understand it today. If your print isn't already on file for the exact right reason, it's just ink on a card, sitting in a folder. No one is charged. The case goes cold.
I want to pause here on what cold actually meant in this era. It didn't mean forgotten. Omaha PD kept the boxes. But it meant that unless someone confessed or a fingerprint got lucky, this was a murder that was going to sit exactly where it was for 30 years. Fast forward 3 decades. Omaha PD has a cold case homicide unit now, and Officer Douglas Heraut gets assigned the Bonnet file. Around the same time, actually just before Heraut even picks up the case, the crime lab does something routine. They rerun the old fingerprints from the scene through IAFIS, the Integrated Automated Fingerprint Identification System. It's a national database the FBI built in 1999, connecting state and local prints to a searchable federal system. In 1978, this technology didn't exist. In 2009, it's just another Tuesday for a lab tech. One of the crime scene prints comes back with a match, Jerry Watson.
This is where I need to pause and ask the obvious question. Who is Jerry Watson?
And why is his print sitting in a federal database in the first place? The answer is almost anticlimactic. He's currently serving time in an Illinois prison, not for murder, for burglary. Heraut starts pulling the thread. Watson grew up in Cicero, Illinois, the exact town where Bonnet's stolen car turned up in 1978. He lived only a few blocks from where that car was found, and records show that in the latter part of 1978, Watson visited a relative in Omaha. Proximity, timing, a fingerprint. It's compelling, but it's not enough to charge someone with murder. Heraut needs more.
This is the part of the story I find genuinely fascinating, because it's not about a new witness or a lucky tip. It's about evidence that was sitting in storage the entire time, waiting for science to catch up to it. Heraut sends items from the original 1978 scene to the University of Nebraska Medical Center for DNA testing that simply did not exist when Bonnet died. A beer can, cigarette butts, the contents of the wastebaskets, kitchen, and living room, the severed telephone cord, and those 3 towels found near the body, which contained fecal matter attributed to Bonnet, along with hair fibers. Labs are able to pull full and partial DNA profiles from multiple pieces of that evidence, and they match Jerry Watson.
On top of the fingerprint from IFAS, another palm print from the scene is matched to a set taken directly from Watson. Heraut travels to Illinois to interview him in prison. And here's a detail I think says a lot. The warrant to collect Watson's DNA was obtained just days before he was set to be released. If they'd waited any longer, he'd have walked out a free man with no reason to ever come back to Nebraska's attention. In the interview, Watson admits he was in Omaha in 1978. He denies knowing Bonnet, he denies ever being in that apartment, he denies the murder entirely. But the fingerprint and the DNA say otherwise.
Here's what caught my attention more than almost anything else in this case. Detectives now have overwhelming physical evidence. Fingerprints, palm prints, DNA. They're ready to move toward charges. But there's still that note. I am leaving this crime with only one clue. What clue? While reviewing the evidence again, Heraut notices something on one of the newspapers recovered from the scene back in 1978. Blue ink scribbled over something. At first, it looks like nothing, a scratch out. But under closer examination, there's cursive handwriting underneath the scribble. It reads Jerry W.
The killer had left his own name at the scene, half hidden under his own attempt to cover it, and then dared police to find it. For over 30 years, it sat in an evidence box, unread, while the man who wrote it lived his life 500 miles away. I don't think I need to editorialize much on that. The arrogance writes its own commentary. On November 15, 2010, Jerry Watson is charged with first-degree murder and use of a deadly weapon to commit a felony. The trial itself carries a unique legal weight because of just how much time has passed. 3 decades is long enough for witnesses to die, for memories to blur, for the people who might have seen something in 1978 to simply no longer be available to testify. Watson's defense will lean on exactly that gap later, but at trial, the physical evidence does the talking. Fingerprint, palm print, DNA, the confirmed connection to Cicero, the stolen car, and that scribbled signature on a decades-old newspaper. After 10 days of testimony, a jury convicts Jerry Watson of first-degree murder. The date is August 25, 2011, exactly 33 years, almost to the day after Carol Bonnet was killed. On October 17, 2011, Watson is sentenced to life in prison for the murder conviction, plus an additional 10 to 20 years for the weapons charge. Bonnet would have been 91 years old the day his killer was finally sentenced. Watson doesn't stop there. He appeals all the way to the Nebraska Supreme Court, arguing that the 30-plus year delay in prosecution deprived him of the ability to confront certain witnesses and evidence that no longer existed or was no longer available by the time of trial. The Nebraska Supreme Court disagrees. In 2013, the court affirms his conviction and sentence, ruling that the evidence, the fingerprint, the DNA, the physical connection to the scene, was more than sufficient for a jury to convict, regardless of what time had erased. Watson later sought post-conviction relief as well, arguing his trial counsel had been ineffective. That was denied too, without even an evidentiary hearing, and the Nebraska courts upheld that decision on appeal as well. The system that failed to catch Jerry Watson in 1978, for reasons that had nothing to do with effort and everything to do with the technology of the era, eventually caught up to him, because evidence, unlike memory, doesn't fade in a box.
Carol Bonnet worked at a hospital. He kept a tidy home. He was missed within 2 days by people who cared about him. That's most of what we know about who he was, because the story that survived, the one that got investigated and tried and appealed all the way to a state Supreme Court, was never really about him. It was about the man who thought he'd never be found. He was wrong. It just took longer than anyone expected.
If you want to see how these cold cases actually get solved, decades after everyone else has moved on, this channel is where I dig into them one at a time. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.